ahead and get going. We are just happy to be here this morning, and thank you for joining us today. We only have about 45 minutes scheduled for today's presentation, so we're going to move through this pretty quickly, but just know that we will follow up after today's call. There will also be Q&A at the end, so lots of opportunity to connect with us after today's presentation as well. This is being recorded, so just know that, and we will share that link out as well. In addition to the slides from today. So we're going to just go ahead and get started. I'm Ashley Bender, Executive Director for United Way, Manitowoc County. And on behalf of the newly formed Early Childhood Care and Education Consortium, I'll be facilitating today's conversation with Sachin Shivaram. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry. There is also somebody on the back end, Abby Quistorf from the Chamber, helping us with tech. Thank you, Abby. So please feel free to use the chat. You can toss your questions in there or just jot them down. And again, we'll have time for Q&A at the end. We are going to dive right into this. I'm going to turn it over real quick to Sachin for some opening remarks, and then we'll get into today's discussion. Sachin?
Yes, thank you, Ashley. I'm super excited about this. We have just a wonderful team across the community that is, in my experience, the best kind of public-private partnership that I've ever been a part of. We are so blessed to have so many people who care about the community, who have worked long hours to think about different solutions that can help make this happen. And I think that team has gotten us to this point, very exciting, where we're able to roll out the concept to other like-minded businesses in the community and hopefully get some enthusiasm drummed up to get others on board so that we can really make this happen. So very much looking forward to the discussion. I think we have a great concept and want to hear the feedback so that we can further refine things before we move forward. So thank you to everybody who's worked on this, and thank you to all who joined.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so to dive right into it, the Early Childhood Care and Education Consortium is actively applying for a very large grant through the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation's Workforce Innovation Grant Program. And our application is focused on supporting the expansion of childcare capacity throughout Manitowoc County. Progress Lakeshore will be our applicant lead. Other nonprofits and businesses in our area are taking on other key roles to help deliver this grant to our community should we receive it. So it's been a true collaboration. We did apply for an earlier grant, which was unsuccessful. However, we've taken the lessons learned from that application and wove them into the new application. And we believe that our chances of receiving this new grant are much stronger. So just a brief overview of the concept of the early childhood care benefit, which is what we are applying for. This benefit is something that employers will offer their employees. It's a new employment benefit that will be in the form of subsidized childcare for children ages 0 to 5 years of age. Grant monies will be used to fund capital projects at various childcare centers throughout Manitowoc County, as well as offset the cost of care operations for an initial period of 3 years. Employers will contribute to the Eccb based on how many childcare spots they wish to secure, and they will also choose how much of the cost they want to subsidize. And we'll explain all of this a little bit later. Employers will be committing though to the program for 6 years, and the consortium members will manage the grant and administer the program. Our ask today is that we engage in a great conversation, gather your questions and provide some answers, because today's conversation is really going to help us round out the rest of our grant application. But we're also looking for commitment from area businesses by April 8th. Just a real quick snapshot here of who makes up the consortium. You can see that we have some amazing individuals and organizations that are helping with not only the application, but also the design of the Eccb program. In summary, just want to highlight the need. We have some additional data. So if this is something that you would find helpful to take back to your team, it will be in the slide deck that we will send out. Additional data will be right in there for you to take a look at. But in summary, childcare is an economic driver for communities, and many families in our area are facing shortages of high quality childcare, which is creating an everyday crisis for families just as much as it is for area businesses. Forward thinking, sustainable, and collaborative community solutions are a must if we are to create meaningful change around this crisis and positively impact our community's overall well being. So, how does the ECCB meet the need? This benefit was designed to develop a sustainable model that will increase childcare capacity in Manitowoc County. As Sachin said, it's a public-private partnership that's focused on resolving the root cause of this community-wide issue. It has a direct connection to employment, but it also focuses on high-quality care for our children, helping improve the quality of local childcare centers. In addition, this was designed to increase access to safe early childhood care services, improve school readiness, and also help families increase their financial stability.
Yep. Ashley, if I can jump in on this page, I wanted to highlight two things that I think are critical to understand about what we're trying to do here as it relates to the grant application as well. One is, we all recognize that there's a shortage of childcare need. We, WAF at Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry, we funded a study that shows that there are basically 1,000 unmet needs for licensed childcare spots within Manitowoc County that we know about. And extrapolating that out, to all the different companies in the area, the need is probably closer to 4,000 or 5,000. So a tremendous need for childcare for children and for their parents that is not there. Now, I think all of us who are involved in business know that eventually, the marketplace will resolve that need. I mean, it may take 10 years, it may take 15 years, but as the need for care is out there, people, entrepreneurs will come in, they'll build childcare centers, and it'll happen. Eventually. It may take 15 or 20, 10 to 15 years, but that will happen. But this program is designed to accelerate that market change that we know will happen, because we simply cannot wait. Like, in our business, we don't want to wait a decade, for this to come around. And who knows what may happen between now and then. If we're not able to get the type of people we need, our businesses may change, and we may not be able to be as successful. So we need this change to happen now. And this is where the grant comes in, which, the only way to really accelerate this kind of natural free market thing is to bring in this sort of public funding and do some investment upfront, which brings me to the second point, which is this idea about the public-private partnership. And Ashley and I were talking last week about leadership and how leadership truly matters. Again, this sort of thing, the development of childcare will happen over time if we just allow the economy to progress autonomously. But with leadership, we can kind of change the fortune of our community. And I think those of us who live in Manitowoc, look to Sheboygan, for instance, that is, more developed. It's a bigger area. You see a more robust public-private community there, and it's because of the leaders there that have made that happen. And I think, those of us in Manitowoc, I certainly in Manitowoc, I feel kind of like as the younger brother of Sheboygan in many ways. And as we look to what that community has been able to achieve, it falls upon us, this community on this phone call, to take action. And so that's really what we're asking you for is exercise your leadership and let's accelerate this change in our community for hugely positive development for everybody.
And a perfect segue to our next slide. So thank you. So we do have two area businesses that have already committed. Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry, of course. As you can tell, Sachin is very energized about this, so it's wonderful. But we also have Manitowoc Public School District, who has already committed. And then we have three other large area businesses that are actively considering this and in conversation with the consortium. So that includes Aurora Healthcare, Lakeside Foods, and Holy Family Memorial Freighter. And this collectively is about roughly around 3,500 employees that this benefit could possibly support just with these area businesses. So again, to Sachin's point, there's more need out there. We know there's more families out there that are in need of something like this. to break down barriers to employment and help make sure kids have access to safe childcare.
Mhm.
All right, so here's where we're going to get into more of the meat and potatoes of how this works. And please continue to jot down your questions or throw them into the chat. So the first piece of how this works is the consortium's responsibility. So the consortium will be responsible for collecting letters of commitment from you all, as well as from child care centers. And again, that deadline is April 8th for the letters of commitment. Following all of that, if we receive or get the grant, there will be additional work and conversation. So the initial step is just the letters of commitment. After receiving award of the grant, the consortium will also manage data collection and impact reporting, as well as distribution of funds to the area child care providers for the things such as true cost of care, capital projects, material items, a couple of other things such as professional development, training, things like that. The employer's responsibility will be to determine the number of childcare seats that you would need, and also determine which childcare centers that you would like to partner with for this benefit. And there's just a lot of flexibility. I want to make sure I highlight that. There's a lot of flexibility for employers here. We've structured this so that it is flexible for you to design so that it meets the needs of your organization, your employees, and it works for your business. So determining that employee eligibility method as well as the benefit structure, those are all things that the consortium members are here to support you with and help you with the next step of this. And then the child care center's responsibility is to send invoices to the employer for their portion, but then also to report feedback and outcomes to the consortium as well. All right, we wanted to provide you with an example so that you can see how this would break down. So this is just an example of employer ABC choosing to reserve 4 seats. What you'll see here on this first slide is that this just shows an annual snapshot of the total costs for just the first 3 years. I just want to make sure I also highlight that these costs are approximate based off of what we know for 2022. We just have to keep in mind that those costs could adjust year over year. So these aren't locked in by any means, but this is the rough idea for right now. So I just want to explain the chart, and then we'll talk about the next 3 years after this. So you can see that we have the age groups listed here, and then the true cost of care per age group. And if the employer chooses to secure just 1 seat for each of those age groups, you can then see what the cost breaks down to. The grant for the first 3 years is going to cover 50%, and then the employer and the employee will split the remaining 50. Now, I just want to also highlight, again, you have the flexibility to choose that percentage. We chose for easy math, a 25-25 split. But again, this is an area that is flexible and can be, customized for your employees. All right. And now I want to show you what it would look like for those last 3 years of the program. Again, this is an annual snapshot, but for years 4 through 6 only. And really the only change is that the grant drops off at that 50% coverage. So you can see then we just adjusted the percentage that the employer and the employee would be responsible for.
Yeah, Ashley, can I just jump in on these 2 pages as well? I wanted to say first, you may experience a little bit of sticker shock, at the cost, or maybe not. Hopefully you're aware. But the number one is the fact is childcare is expensive, and this is what our employees are facing. And at our company, median earnings are about $55,000 a year. Someone making that amount of money is simply not able to pay $20,000 a year for care. Like, just not going to happen. And so what do they do instead? Well, you may not have a spouse that's working because they can't offset the cost of 2 spouses and then needing the care. Or more likely, they go for severely suboptimal care, taking kids to different households, no education, using the TV as childcare, this sort of thing, as that's what they're forced to do. And so, number one, good quality early childhood care is expensive. But what we would love for you to think about this is truly an investment, as all of us do in our businesses. You make an upfront significant expenditure to reap the benefit over time. And there's, I think, no better case for this probably in humanity than, early childhood education, what it means for outcomes for of course, for the child, but also for the community. I mean, we're thinking about our future workforce. We can truly spend no better money than right here. Another couple of points that I want to mention about this cost is part of the design of our program is to help support the marketplace to be able to pay for this on our own eventually. Today, if we launch this program, nobody can pay $20,000 a year for early childhood care. But the idea is after 6 years, hopefully we can kind of remove the training wheels and the marketplace will be more able to pay for that because they'll have gotten used to the benefits of higher quality care. They'll want to pay for it. And as a side example, I used to pay $10 for a haircut at the Southside Barbershop in Manitowoc. When that closed, I was migrated to a little bit more expensive, but the haircut, you probably can't tell right now because it's grown out, is dramatically better. And now I'm okay paying $22 a haircut. Same concept here. We want the marketplace to get used to a better quality of a product, and then hopefully they'll be able to pay for it. And then the fourth thing I'd mention is that this is a benefit for your employees. We spend roughly the same amount, probably about $15,000 a year per employee for healthcare, and that we've worked it into our pricing, we worked it into our business model. That's just something we do now. And what Ashley's painting here is that the future of employment is going to involve a childcare benefit. We see it in bigger cities already. It's going to happen. And this is a way for you to kind of start offering that benefit to your employees as well.
Thank you. All right, so we are getting to the end here and we're going to open it up for Q&A, but first, can't leave you without doing our call to action. So we are doing a call to action for you to be, please commit to be a leader of the early childhood care benefit here in Manitowoc County, again, by April 8th. Not just that April 8th deadline is for you to submit a letter of commitment. There's more work to come after we receive the grant. Again, to the points that Sachin just made, this could be a great tool for you to use as a possible recruitment and retention strategy. We're going to maintain and improve productivity. You can speak to that just as Sachin just did. Support that workplace culture that I know all of our area businesses here care so deeply about. But additionally, that future outlook is that we're helping kids and families thrive, but we're also investing in that future workforce. All right, so that takes us into the Q&A, and I will leave this up on the screen so that you can see again who the members of the consortium are. And you can jot down email addresses if you wish to connect with any of us, via email. You're welcome to do that. But I'm going to just move into Q&A then.
Ashley, while people think of their questions, could you talk a little bit more about kind of the practical aspects of how we'd actually like people to commit? Can they reach out to you and get kind of a form letter, or how will that work?
Yes, so that's a great question to get us going. We actually will follow up with an email after today. You will receive an email with the slide deck, but you will also receive a copy of the letter of commitment. And there's just a couple of pieces that we would need you to fill in. And those are really just telling us, what do you estimate your number of seats possibly being? And you're really just saying we commit to this program and participating. And then we'll be taking that and writing that into our grant. So you're really just helping us, again, round out our grant application. And then after that, when we receive the grant, we will follow up with you to move forward with next steps. So it looks like, oh, I'm sorry. And then the letter, you will be able to send that letter of commitment to Jamie at Progress Lakeshore. We'll include her email address for you in our communication. We have a question from Connie Loden. How do businesses sign up to participate? So Connie, I hope that answered your question.
Another thing that maybe might concern some of the participants is the 6-year commitment. And I know Ashley mentioned that a little bit, but I'd like to say, first the grant covers the first 3 years, and so that gets us a long way. But when we think about the horizon that we, our own business needs, your businesses need, in terms of making capital investments, generally 3 years of visibility is not enough, and I think we need a longer runway so that the YMCA can feel confident in building out a new expansion onto their building to house to provide care. They need to know that they're going to have a sustainable group of children users for that facility for a longer period of time, and that's why kind of the 6 years is a minimum that we're needing. I see there's another question up there.
Yes, Jacinda has asked, will the program continue to be an option if grant funding is not established? There are other consortium members on this call, and I'm gonna just pause and see if others, Jamie or Karen, if you would like to answer first.
Well, let me try my answer at that one. And I'd say it'll be difficult. I'll tell you from the Wisconsin Aluminum perspective, we'd be ready to make up the lack of funding from the grant for our own participation, but we need everybody to feel that way. And given the amount of money, I'm guessing it'll be tough. So really, from my perspective, this grant is necessary to make this happen. Oh, there are a lot of questions coming through, which is great.
Yes. Yeah, and there are some in Q&A, so we're going to do our best to catch up on all of these. Yeah, and the grant is really helping. I know there's some questions coming in about, how do you plan to staff the center or grow the current centers given the shortage of childcare workers? The grant will help with some of those strategies. So we're working with area nonprofit Family Connections. This is what they do really is to help improve the quality of childcare centers. So they're a key partner in this and helping us develop that and really create the child care field as a career of choice. That really isn't how it's viewed right now. So it's more of a stop for people maybe finishing school, trying to decide where they go after college. We really want to shape that field as a career of choice. So we're working on that, and the grant is going to help fund that and hopefully recruit more employees and get them in. So there'll be professional development opportunities for employees. Really, again, just making it a draw for them to be there, and also helping improve the rate of pay, because that is a very low threshold right now. So.
Yeah, let me echo that. I think the wage, that is why the cost of this program is higher, because we've been quite insistent from the beginning that the wage has to be attractive. We're not going to pay $12 an hour and expect to get people. It's going to have to be much higher. And then also, as one of the consortium members, you see is Lakeshore Technical College. They have a great, child care training program. I actually met a few graduates there last week, and the idea would be to help use this as part of that externship program for LTC, and that would draw in trained people, trained caregivers.
Right. So Carrie Miller has asked, what exactly are we purchasing with the 4 seats holding positions for employees? So yes, Carrie, you're essentially just saying, we are reserving X number of seats at this childcare center or a combination of different childcare centers, and then you're making that available to your employees. Just letting them know, hey, we've got a seat available if you have a 4-year-old or a 2-year-old that needs childcare. Let's see, can the number of spots, so Stephanie has asked, can the number of spots be changed, updated throughout the program as our needs change? Stephanie, I think we're looking to secure a certain number for the 6 years, but don't quote me on that just yet. I think that's one of the areas that I think the consortium is still kind of massaging that out. I'm not 100% on that, but I think we want to try to lock that in for this year, but something we'll evaluate. So good question. Thank you for asking that question.
Let me throw out an idea, kind of live, and I'll surprise Ashley with this, but see how she reacts. But I could imagine as businesses' needs change, some will need more seats and some will need fewer. And I think as long as there's a commitment among people that, hey, I'm not just going to drop my seat, I'm going to kind of help trade it to somebody else that they can, pick up the seat and pay for that. I think that would be just fine, as long as people feel that obligation that I'm not going to just drop it, but I'll help ensure that the seat gets paid for somehow with another business.
Right.
That'd be just fine.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because we really are, again, trying to build a sustainable model for the early childhood care centers. And if this ebbs and flows too much, then that affects them financially, because they're going to be counting on that commitment. So,
well, can you unmute Jamie?
Abby, could you unmute Jamie?
I'm unmuted.
Oh, great.
But you're answering a lot of questions wonderfully, so I don't feel like I really need to chime in. I think one of the questions around, what happens if we don't get this grant? Then what do we do with this? This model is still very relevant. This topic is still very, very relevant. And we will continue to work with our local businesses and nonprofit partners. Our consortium is not going to dissolve. We're not here just because of the grant. The grant is just a likely one-time opportunity to get some public funding to help us get this off the ground. But the conversation will not end. We'll just be looking at different methods and different financial opportunities.
Yeah, definitely we'll remain regrouped as we did, through the first setback. But the key for me is that we do need some outside source of funding, unless everybody's willing to just pitch in a lot more than we expect. We're going to need outside funding, and that'll likely come in the form of a public grant. I see Carrie is asking, is the YMCA participating in this program? And yes, very much so. They're listed here on the page. The YMCA, to me at least, is kind of the anchor of the childcare ecosystem in the local community. They have the lowest cost ability to expand, and it already seems to be a kind of preferred childcare provider for many people in the community. And so they're going to be central, and Julie is central to this whole effort.
We have a really good question from Stephanie, and she's asking, will each community in Manitowoc County benefit, or is this primarily for Manitowoc? So the consortium is looking at this as a county-wide issue. So we're looking at partnering with area businesses and childcare providers that are throughout the county, really just lifting up the childcare services and access to childcare services at a with a countywide lens. So. Sasha, there is a question directed to you in the Q&A, and I'm not sure if you can see that. If you can't, I will read it.
I can't see it.
Okay. So this question is, my understanding is that Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry was giving employees $400 per month for childcare, which ended at the end of 2021. Now it has been reinstated, but only at state certified childcare centers. You have indicated that there is a huge shortage of care, which showed through your study. There are waiting lists at certified centers with over 200. We are currently one of 250 on a wait list at one of your center partners. That means your benefit to employees is only for a very few. Why penalize those that choose in-home care provider, knowing that there would be zero incentive for those in-home care providers to become certified as they too turn away people on a regular basis? What is the incentive for employees who don't have children? What will have Johnny and Dan, Johnny has a 1-year-old and Dan has no children, to become employed for you? So I feel like this is asking about in-home providers. How do they factor into this? But then also the question that I know the consortium has tossed around, how do you set up the structure, so the eligibility structure? How do you determine the eligibility?
Yeah, and can you remind me who asked the question?
This came in anonymously.
Oh, yeah, this is a very good point. So for some of you might not know, so we had last year we paid we reimbursed all employees $400 per month for any childcare expense. So, if you're paying your grandmother or whatever, and any other expenses you had related to that, we just reimburse it. It became, to administer quite complicated. Well, not complicated. It was just kind of a chaos. It was people bringing in emails, scraps of paper, and that is unfortunately the childcare economy out there. It's just everybody pitching in different ways. But then as we were going to offer that program till the end of the year, which we did. And then as we thought about bringing it on, we wanted to incentivize people to migrate to better quality care. And so we thought we'd do that through only reimbursing licensed care providers. But you bring up a really good point, which is there's not enough capacity out there. So how do we expect people to get the care? So, I mean, we're not policy experts. This is probably a bad policy. Good thing is we're a family business and we can probably change this up, in a week if we wanted to. So we'll be reconsidering this, to try to make it probably more like it was before, but somehow easier to administer. So yeah, great question, very fair, and it's not optimal. I would agree.
And then we have a couple questions that came in around, the childcare seats. If a daycare center is currently full and has a waiting list, how do new seats open up with this program? Connie has done a great job of answering that question. It's just that the grant is going to work with in-home centers. So to address that question, how do they get into the fold of this? But then also to help, we're looking at a recruitment specialist to help increase staff at all centers. So again, increasing the staff is a primary goal of the grant and the work of the consortium, so that we can open up additional seats and make this program a success across the board. We have a couple of initial steps that need to take place to get there, but there's lots of good energy around that and some really awesome partners. So I hope that answers the question, Carrie. That was one of your couple of your questions. And then we have a question about tax credits. And this might be Jamie, maybe you can answer this question. Are there any tax credits for employers that contribute?
I'm just going to answer by simply saying I'm not a tax expert. So I would suggest speaking with your tax accountant or your finance department or wherever you get that type of information. That has not been a focus of at least this portion of our grant discussion and our consortium. If there are any out there that you find, we would sure love to know about that so we can promote that, but not that I'm aware of. But again, please consult a tax expert.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah.
All right. The question.
Well, just on that, I would say, it is going to be a deductible expense, so you'll get that benefit. If there's a further, if there's some program that would give you, I don't know if it's a tax credit, I doubt that would happen, but if there's, some state program or something that gives you, matching funds for what you spend for your children, for your employees' childcare, that might apply. But tax credits specifically within this, I would think no. Other than the deductibility.
And there is another tax-related question from Cheryl. Will the employer have to tax the employee for the value of what the employer pays on their behalf?
Yeah, so this is a great question, and I think this is a nice silver lining in the, not a silver lining. This is an intended benefit of the way the program is structured. So your company will make a direct contribution to the consortium's operating expense, and then as part of that, you're allocated a seat that you can divvy out to your employees. Then what you charge them is completely up to you. But you're not paying that money to the employee. You'll just say, employee, you need to pay the Child Care Consortium $10,000 or $5,000, whatever you want to charge them directly there. So it's not compensation that you're giving the employee. So I think that's kind of a end around that, so that at least they won't have to be taxed on that benefit.
All right, and then we have another question. What if we purchase seats and those employees term from the company? Sachin, how would you envision handling that over at Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry?
Well, so what if we purchase seats and then those employees term? Well, then you could reallocate the seat to someone else. So does that answer your question, Tyne?
Yes.
Okay.
Got it. Perfect. All right. And then Stephanie is asking, is the intention to build another facility? At this time, the consortium has not been made aware that a new facility will be going up. We're looking at helping the current child care centers expand their capacity within the spaces that they're in, and that might include capital projects. And then also to help add new child care centers that are maybe working through the license process and help them get through that licensing process and get them up and running. If we can support them financially in some way, help secure, again, items, cribs, safety gates, things like that, because they might be hitting roadblocks to getting licensed, which reduces the number of seats available in our community. So,
yeah, but I think this is a really great question, good point, because this is another strength of the model that we're proposing, is that we're not going to go build some giant building and then hope that people come. The capital investments will be done in a kind of bit by bit way, incremental way to serve kids. And so that's what helps the sustainability. I would be worried as a grant funder if I gave the Manitowoc community, here you go, here's $5 million, go build a building and hope that kids come to that place, as opposed to divvy out $5 million amongst the existing people who already know how to run these businesses, who already have a critical mass of kids, and help them add 10% more as the need is justified. And so I think this is a very important point, that we're looking to fund expansion as opposed to creation of a new building.
right. Well, since the questions have slowed down a little bit, I just want to chime in with one that I heard from somebody. They had asked the question, how does this work for employers who have a multi-county service area? And again, I would just go back to our point that this is flexible, and that is something that the consortium is here to support you with and talk that through. But I don't know, Sachin, if you want to weigh in on any suggestions or thoughts on that, feel free.
Yeah, no, I mean, unfortunately, we won't be able to serve all the different areas just because the company is based here, but for now, just focused on Manitowoc County.
All right. So Courtney has asked a question regarding hours. Is it within the scope of the consortium to expand the daytime hours these childcare centers support into evenings, perhaps? Courtney, yes, that is 100% on our radar and part of the program. This whole project, we're looking at expanding, again, access and availability, which means hours for families who work second and third shift, because that right now is non-existent as far as we know in our community. We don't have those child care providers in our community yet. So.
Well, I mean, if the questions seem to be done, I'd love to make just one last plug. Pulling on your heartstrings and your sense of obligation to the community, you can make a difference. I know that sounds cliche, but in so many communities of our size, we see that things go one way or the other based on what the people who live and work there do. And we are at that sort of crossroads. We have Manitowoc the county has had a historic demographic issue where we're unable to attract the types of young people that we need to keep the workforce expanding. We've had the departure of a few large companies, 10, 15 years ago that were also a blow. And it's a community that can go either way. And I think this sort of thing, which is so innovative, it's so different, and it's really designed for success, to create long-term, health in the community, especially amongst children. I think you need to be a part of this, and you won't regret it. I think this is going to be money well spent for the community and for your businesses. And so we would love for now to have your informal commitment, well, your commitment through a letter that we would include in the grant, which will really boost our chances of getting this grant, because it's going to show that the community is involved, companies and agencies together. You're not committing yourself to anything that with that. We would hope that you take it that way. But the letter is for now, support and your interest of going forward. And then hopefully we'll get it. And then we'll kind of come back to this group with a more serious ask. But I really hope you can kind of dig deep, think about it, and then act quickly this week to get your commitment into the group.
We do have a final question from Stephanie. She's asking, do the companies that are committing get to choose which facilities in their community are contributed to? So if I'm understanding your question, Stephanie, what we're doing is trying to connect with as many childcare providers in our community in our county as we can, and just understand what their needs are and wrap our heads around that so we can weave that cost into our grant budget, and then hopefully work with as many of them as possible, because again, we're trying to improve the capacity and access to childcare. So those that commit to working with us, we will have that list available. And then I think the vision is for area employers to choose which of those childcare centers, and it could be a combination possibly of a couple different centers, or you choose one because it's maybe closer to your your location. But that's where that flexibility comes in. But we will have a list of area providers that we are working with through this program. So I think that answers your question, but let me know if I didn't get it. Before we close, and we just have a couple minutes left, will the list of facilities be available prior to our commitment? I believe I don't know that we have that secured 100% yet, Stephanie. But let me connect with the consortium members to see where we're at on that. Following this webinar, the chamber will be sending the slide deck. Yes, thank you, Karen. And can we switch daycare facilities for seats? Again, we're looking at that commitment because again, we want the childcare centers to have a sustainable model, and if they know that you've purchased or secured 4 or 6 seats, they're counting on that. And if we fluctuate a little too much, then that will mess with their day-to-day operations and business practice. So Sasha, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I mean, you and I talked about this last week, as a possible question that may come up. And I mean, my personal view is if the facility has made like a significant capital investment to expand, and then, now all of a sudden with some changes, they won't have the volume, then I think, we may have issues, or we may need to at least maintain a certain number of seats. But if there hasn't been a capital investment in expansion, then I wonder if there won't be more kind of fungibility where you'll just say, an employee quit who we needed that facility in Valders, and now we need to switch to the facility in Manitowoc. I would imagine there'd be, a fair amount of that sort of fluidity. That'd be fine. But as Ashley mentioned, we do need to kind of figure those issues out. Still haven't nailed down all those details.
Yeah, you're asking some amazing questions, and this is really going to help us think through the rest of this and really shape it. So we really appreciate these very honest, tough questions. So yeah, you're welcome. All right, I think I just want to give a little room for any of the other consortium members that are on today's call to chime in. Did anybody else from the consortium want to weigh in? Last minute thoughts as we close out.
I just want to add on some of these questions that are really about some of the details of the contracts with the childcare centers and things. Those are all the details that are future conversations, to be honest with you. We can't anticipate every, how many seats are at each childcare center. We're gathering all of that. So for the sake of this kind of a quick deadline to get this grant moving, the commitment letter really is saying that you support this model and this movement, and that when all of those details are worked out, that you are committed to participating in some way. It could be 1 seat at a childcare center. It could be 20 seats at a childcare center. You're not committing to either one of those things by this Friday, but that you are committed to supporting this model and offering an early childcare benefit at your company in some fashion. So just to, not make this Friday seem like there's a lot of details you need to know before you send that letter. Obviously, we're all open to discussions. You've got our contact information, at least via email on the screen. So we're all welcome to or open to having those conversations. But this Friday's commitment is really about the model and the movement more than it is the specific seats and how that all plays out.
Well said, Jamie. Thank you.
Thanks.
And then Ashley, I'd just like to jump in for a second too and just say thank you to everybody who participated today, because this is just one small step in solving a huge problem within our community. And it's so nice to see so many people involved so quickly, because we just sent this out last week. So we know that people are in need of this. So it's just a great opportunity for all of us to continue to forge forward. And as Jamie said, there are a lot of questions we're not so positive about, but we can work through this. And we just need everyone to participate and go along the ride with us.
Building the airplane as we fly it, right?
You got it.
All right. Well, we are at time. I'll actually a little bit over. So just to again be respectful of everybody's time. Thank you again to Echo Karen. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Sashin, for helping with the presentation, and Abby on the back end. Really appreciate all of this. It's really been a team effort. Great things are to come, and we look forward to talking with you all this week and into the future as we bring this program to Manitowoc County. So thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks.